Oh, what is this tweet Arenanet put out? I wonder what Reddit has to say. Player 1, it's the Druid. Player 2, it's a Revenant Legend. Player 3, it's challenging group content. Arenanet. Alright, this week we're going to talk about the lore of the group of centaurs you'll meet in the jungle. Players, WP, woohoo! Hi guys, and welcome to another video. So today, Arenanet did another little teaser, but it's a bit of a different teaser to what we saw with previous elite specializations. Actually, there's a good reason to believe it's not going to be an elite specialization at all. I'd like to talk about the various possibilities, though. Of course, we do have possibility number one, that this fellow, who's quite clearly a centaur, some people were saying, oh, this could be a char of some kind. No, this is a centaur, but there is a chance this will be lore about the centaurs. Oh, centaurs are suddenly a playable race. It's not going to happen, guys. I promise you, they're not going to throw out a random secret playable race that now is finally being revealed. It's just not a part of the expansion, they have said. So I don't think it's really going to be too much on centaurs either. Now, yes, we've seen some in the area. In fact, Season 2 of the Living World dealt with, in case you guys don't really remember, a whole group of centaurs, nomadic, peaceful centaurs, just like Ventari, that lived in the Silver Wastes once a long time ago. We got to see in flashbacks while we were playing as Keith, what actually went down there with one of the Silvari Firstborn, and even to this day we still see a bunch of them running around there in Drytop, and they claim no understanding or relation to Ventari himself, but they are peaceful centaurs, so there could be some deeper in the jungle, and it wouldn't really surprise me if we did see a few in Heart of Thorns, especially considering the fact that we're seeing a lot of mounted enemies. Like, if there was one thing that this beta really swept up me off my feet and made me surprised about, is the amount of mounted creatures. And come on, centaurs, if they now have the technology to have things mount centaurs, we gotta see that at some point, right? So I wouldn't be surprised. But again, I don't think we're going to get a whole blog post on them. Didn't we already have one before launch as well, talking about centaurs? Yes, not these specific ones in this area of the world, but are they really going to be that interesting? Yes, we had stuff with the Hylek, but we were looking at two brand new races of Hylek, the Itzel and the Newhawk. Are we saying they're going to be brand new versions or races for centaurs? I suppose it's possible. I just don't think it's very likely. The next thing that this could be, a lot of people are saying, is it could be a reveal of challenging content. This makes sense. Remember, 3 weeks ago on the live stream, we were expecting something big to be announced, something cool, and then it seemed to get cut away. It definitely seemed to go against the plan, and Arenanet had to do a different kind of live stream, and even this week's live stream itself was cancelled. So they're clearly juggling with something. They're struggling with whatever they wanted to put out. We were expecting back then, though, when there was this big upcoming live stream, what could it be? A lot of people were saying, hey, it could be challenging content. And just look at this tweet that was thrown out. The elite specialization tweets were just an image, nothing else. It was just an image. However, this one actually comes with a quote. This is a part of a quote from the Ventari tablet. This was actually written by Ventari. The full quote is, "Life can be painful, but do not fear the trials you will face. Hard ground makes stronger roots." So do not fear the trials you will face, life can be painful. Doesn't that seem like a great little tagline to hint at us, hey, here's how we're doing raiding? Look at this comment from Colin Johansson himself, the man, on the official forums just a few days ago. This set stirs through the community. People were asking, hey, you've announced, on stage at PAX, one of the big things about this expansion is there's going to be challenging content, but you haven't given us any specific what's going on. He says, simply put, we haven't announced what that challenging content is yet. He says, when we're ready to show everything about our plans for challenging content, we will announce it. He says, though it isn't the challenging content feature discussed in our announcement, I will add also that we want our open world content experience to be more challenging too, just in general. Though the AI was better in our closed beta experience, we still think we have a lot of work to do to get our creatures and encounters even at the start of Verdant Brink up to where we want them to be. Our game does have great combat, and our creatures' environments should challenge and require you to use that combat system. Which is very true. You really only get into the depth of Guild Wars 2's combat when you play World vs. World or PvP. PvE has never really challenged it at all. Closest, I would say, is like the Queen's Gauntlet, where we had the little 1v1s with various bosses. But yeah, so they're kind of saying, look, the general bar for Heart of Thorns is supposed to be higher, and they're trying to tap into a lot more stuff. But this key thing, this key difficult piece of content they're working on, but they're not ready to show it to us. Well, maybe they are now. Maybe things have changed in 3 days. Again, I think maybe somewhat unlikely. The truth of the matter to me is, look, we have an image of a centaur that is quite clearly Ventari, and a quote from Ventari. This is going to be something to do with Ventari. Well, what could that be? There's two options, okay? Number one, yes, this is some kind of an elite specialization. However, we have a quote. We have additional information that has set this apart. The only elite specialization that this could vaguely have something to do with is perhaps the Druid. And I think the only people who are thinking Druid when they see this are kind of seated in the World of Warcraft idea of Druids, which has a lot of shape-shifting involved in them. Now, I know a lot of shape-shifting is a big thing in Guild Wars 2, but somehow I don't think that the Guild Wars 2 Druids are going to be shapeshifters. Don't forget, when they described to us the names for professions, they said some were going to be high fantasy, or high concept, some of them were going to be like traditional fantasy, some of them were going to be Tyrian lore based. And Druid might sound to you guys like just generic fantasy, but actually it's very much tying into Tyrian lore. The Druids are a group of humans who went to the Maguma jungle about, I think it was 100 years before the events of Guild Wars 1 when they were last seen, and they kind of ascended into spiritness, and they sort of shed their mortal forms to become druids. And now in Guild Wars 2, rangers are going to the forest and becoming druids. It's actually not so much generic fantasy as it is very Tyrian lore based, this name. And there's nothing really there that says they're going to be transforming. Maybe they'll transform into like spirit-like creatures, but certainly not some kind of beastie centaur style thing we're seeing here. I think I like the idea of druids in Guild Wars 2 being more about interacting with our pet. You know, that mind-controlling pet idea I think is fantastic still, if that ever becomes a thing. And don't forget, we don't know much about the druid, but we do know that it's supposed to be naturey in its casting of magic, and specifically that it uses a staff. And very, very carefully, every elite specialization teaser Arenanet have done so far, they have shown the elite specialization in their concept art wielding the weapon. So we saw the Chronomancer wielding the shield, their special shield. We saw the Dragon Hunter wielding their longbow. We are not seeing this centaur Ventari wield anything. There is no staff in sight. And if you want a final nail in the coffin, Ruby actually tweeted this out in response to Lithril Ashwalker, who said, "Why Druid? We already know what it is. Show Thief or NG for fuck's sake." And she just said, who said anything about Druid? With a winky face. So, yeah, it really doesn't seem very likely. But, there is one interesting thing, though. I think there is a good reason to believe Druid might be the next elite specialization, even though this probably isn't it. Because if you actually have a look over at the Guild Wars 2 professions page, these are the original professions. Revenant hasn't actually been added to this list, but this is this old thing that pre-launch, most of the hype was centered around. This was originally just a grayed out image, and slowly each thing filled in. This still fills me with nostalgia just to look at it. We have the professions, of course, listed left to right, but down below, and this was recently changed, this page, as far as I'm aware, they actually have the professions listed. And what elite specialization did we get first? Chronomancer. Oh, that was the Mesmer, right? And then what did we get? We got Dragon. Oh, Guardian. And then we got Reaper and Necromancer. Ah, look, this is an order, guys. So Ranger is next, which would suggest Druid is next. I just don't think it's this week. Then for what it's worth, we would get Tempest, we'd get the Warrior, Berserker, whatever, Thief, Sniper, Commando, whatever, what have you, and the Engineer, Demolisher or something, finally ending on the Revenant. So if it's not any of that stuff, what other options do we have? Well, a Revenant Legend. Don't forget that not even that long ago, that Shaman managed to data mine some additional legends for the Revenant. We of course know that Malix the Unyielding is one. We know that King Jarlath's Ironhammer is one. There were 3 more that were data mined. Glint was one, which was already heavily speculated to be one, given Ritlock and what we've seen him do in the trailer. Shiro Tagachi, Great Assassin of Factions, was one. And lastly, Ventari was one of these data mined legends, so couldn't this make sense? And actually, it kind of goes hand in hand with elite specialization reveals. If you think about it, the Revenant has a trait line kind of bound to each of their legends. You know, we've got a very tanky trait line, that's the Jarlath trait line. We've got a very Torment application heavy, Condi heavy trait line, and that's the Malix the Unyielding one. We have kind of this generic trait line also, which deals with energy and swapping legends and getting a lot of fury and creating these little orbs that can heal people. But in general, they have said, look, trait lines are kind of, or specializations as they will become known, are bound to the various Revenant legends. So if this week we are getting the announcement of Ventari, the next Revenant legend, then not only are they going to be showing us Ventari's heal skill, Ventari's 3 utilities, and Ventari's elite, but they're actually also going to be showing us a trait line. And also, Revenant, we've only seen, like, in action, 3 of its weapons. We've seen the hammer, and then we have seen Mace main hand with axe offhand. So, wouldn't it be easy for Arenanet to say, hey, look, we'll give you Ventari, we'll see the Ventari skills, we'll see, which is the new utility set, we'll see the new trait line or specialization, and we'll throw in one of their weapons as well. And oh, look, we're actually getting the same amount of information here as an elite specialization reveal. And I think that's exactly what they're going to do, and I think they've actually set something up here where basically they're going to go 3 elite specializations, a break to talk about some other stuff, as we've seen that they've done. Then they'll go into another Revenant Legend before 3 more Elite Specializations. Then we'll have another break. We'll go do some other stuff, maybe guild halls, challenging content, stuff like that. Then we'll go into the 3 final Elite Specializations, ending on number 9, of course, very sweet, the Revenant himself for the final, not only his final Legend, but also his Elite Specialization too. So, you know, you can really pace out very clearly exactly what Arenanet's plans are for the future. Time will tell. Ventari himself, of course, I would suggest is going to be the more supportive kind of legend that people can channel into. Ventari, if you guys aren't familiar with the lore, was an incredible pacifist. He, as a centaur, was born into much war, particularly between humans and centaurs. Much agony, much strife, and he turned his back on his own people. He sought for solitude, and he hid in the Maguma jungle at a place called Ventari's Refuge, which we don't quite have access to just yet in Guild Wars 2. I talked a fair bit about Ventari and his lore in some recent videos I did on a tour of the Maguma jungle in Guild Wars 1. They came out just the other week. There'll be a link in the description of those if you guys want to check them out. We do meet Ventari in them, but he was a pacifist, and even where he makes his home in the first game around this giant silverwood tree, a huge battalion of White Mantle soldiers threaten to destroy it, to overrun it. Still, he will not take up arms, and he stands there. He says, look, if they come in and they slaughter us all, then they slaughter us all. I will not perpetuate violence any longer. I will not fight. And you, the player character, are like, what the hell are you doing? Come on, help us defend your home. And you end up defending the home for him while he does nothing to help you, just because he abhors violence to that degree. And it was Ventari, along with Ronan, who oversaw the nurturing and the development of the Pale Tree, which would bear the Sylvari one day, and wrote the tablet. The tablet is obviously what one of these quotes we're getting from here, but it also seems to be a huge factor in why the Pale Tree never turned evil or gave into its base instincts implanted there by Morgemoth himself. The tablet is a pretty special thing, and how exactly this all came to be is going to be plot points in Heart of Thorns itself. You know, this is why it's going to feel special to play a Sylvari. And especially think about this, being a Sylvari Revenant, channeling the legend of Ventari. Gonna be cool. Gameplay-wise, I would expect heals, I would expect CCs, but I would expect it in kind of a special Revenant-y way. We're already seeing fair support in the way of Jarlis, where you can make everyone invulnerable around you. So I would guess that Jarlis is kind of proactive defense. You make people invulnerable and you stop the blows coming in from being big. And then maybe Ventari is about helping cleanse condies and bring people back up who are already injured and weak. That would be my speculation, but maybe it'll be something very different. Maybe we'll just tie into more centaur-themed abilities, and we'll get to run really fast, and we'll get to trample people, and it'll be about speed rather than anything else. But yeah, that's pretty much what happened today. I will have a further news video for other topics. There's a lot's been going on for you guys tomorrow or the day after, depending on when Arenanet releases this stuff. Let me know what you think Ventari form could be like mechanically, or perhaps if you really think it's going to be one of these ideas, maybe you can justify it to me why it would be. But yeah, thanks very much for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed. I'll catch you next time.